You decided. You remember the exact moment you decided. You were going to wake before the sun. You were going to train. You were going to read the books and build the body and do the work and become the person you keep promising yourself you would finally become. And then the morning came, and the same quiet voice met you there in the dark. Just 5 more minutes. Not today, tomorrow when you feel ready, and you listen to it. Again, you have done this so many times that you have stopped being surprised by it. The vow at night, hot and certain. The surrender in the morning, quiet and familiar. And the small gray shame that follows you through the day. The sense that somewhere there is a stronger version of you that you keep failing to show up as. Here is the thing almost no one will say to your face. You do not have a knowledge problem. You know what to do. You have known for years. You could teach it to someone else. What you carry is a gap problem. There is a gap between the moment you decide and the moment you move, and nearly everything you hate about your life is hiding inside that gap. By the end of this, you will know exactly what lives in that gap. You will know the single rule a samurai used to close it, and you will understand why discipline was never about feeling strong and always about something far smaller and far harder than feeling anything at all. 400 years ago, in a land of cold mountains and colder steel, a young man stood in the very gap you are standing in right now. He was no stronger than you. He was no more gifted than you. What he was taught is the answer you have been missing your whole life. So listen closely, because I am going to give it to you exactly as he received it. If something here begins to land in you, a quiet like helps another seeker find this same fire. Share in the comments the one promise you keep breaking to yourself. Do not hold back. Another soul out there needs your honesty tonight. And if this is the kind of truth you want more of, walk with this channel a while longer. Now, the mountains. His name was Sozin. He was 19 and he was ashamed. He had climbed to the old master's hall with fire in his chest and 100 vows on his lips. He would rise first. He would train hardest. He would be the one the others spoke of in low voices. And for 3 days he was. He rose in the blue dark while the others slept. He stood in the snow until his hands forgot they were hands. And on the 4th day the cold bit deeper, and his body begged, and the vows went quiet. And he stayed beneath the blankets while the others stood in the white silence without him. You know this boy. You have been this boy. The fire of the decision, and then the slow gray leak of it, day by day, until the person who decided and the person who acts are 2 different people who never quite meet. The old master said nothing for a long time. He was patient the way a mountain is patient. He watched Sozin fail and recover and swear new and louder oaths and fail again. He watched the boy punish himself and pity himself and promise that tomorrow would be different. And he knew, as old men know, that tomorrow would not be different, because the boy had not yet understood the one thing that makes any tomorrow different from any yesterday. And one evening, when Sozin had run out of excuses and run out of pride and finally run out of words, the master spoke. He said, "You think discipline is a feeling. That is why you have none." Sozin did not understand. He had spent his whole short life waiting to feel strong, waiting to feel ready, waiting for the morning he would wake up and simply want to do the hard thing. He thought that morning was coming. He thought discipline was that morning, finally arriving. So the master told him the rule the hardest men in that hard country lived by. The rule carved into the old book of the warrior's heart. A decision must be made within the space of 7 breaths. 7 breaths. That was all. Not 7 days of preparing, not 7 months of gathering courage. 7 breaths between the knowing and the doing. And if you could not move inside 7 breaths, the master said, then the moment was already lost, and the second voice had already won, and all your strength and all your wanting would not be enough to win it back. Stop here, because this is you. How long is your gap? Be honest with yourself just once, the way you are never honest in the morning. The alarm sounds, and you know in the very first instant that you should rise. How many breaths pass before you decide? 10, 20, 100? And somewhere in that long, warm stretch of breathing, a second voice arrives, smooth and patient and terribly reasonable, and it does not command you. It only asks, it negotiates, and you lose. Not because you are weak, because you gave the negotiation the one thing it needs to win. You gave it time. That is the secret the gap has been hiding from you your whole life. The gap is where the negotiation happens. Close the gap, and there is nothing left to negotiate. The strongest man alive cannot win a negotiation he allows to run for an hour. The weakest man alive cannot lose one he ends in 3 breaths. The master did not let Sozin practice this rule on the great things, not on the dawn training, not on the cold mountain runs. He started him somewhere the boy found almost insulting. The small things, the cup left on the table. Pick it up within 7 breaths, or leave it and learn what your word to yourself is worth. The fire that needs wood, the blade that needs cleaning, the bow that must be made to the elder at the gate. The master said, in each of these there is a moment you know what to do. From that moment, you have 7 breaths. Decide and move before the mind can build its case. And the boy thought this was beneath him. He had come to learn the sword, and the old man had him chasing teacups. But he obeyed because he had nothing left to lose. And slowly, in the smallest acts a man can perform, something in him began to turn, not because he grew stronger, because he stopped giving his weakness a place to stand and speak. Hear this, because you have been waiting your whole life to be told the opposite. You do not need more motivation. Motivation is the fire of the first 3 days, and the first 3 days always end. They were designed to end. What you need is a rule that works on the 4th day and the 40th, when there is no fire at all and the cold is just cold. The samurai did not stand in the snow because he felt inspired. He woke and he stood because he had decided, and he had trained himself in 1,000 tiny moments never to let the deciding and the doing drift apart. This is the difference between the man you are and the man you keep promising to be. It is not talent. It is not willpower, the way you imagine willpower, some vast iron muscle you were simply born without, while others were born with it. It is the length of the gap, and the gap, unlike your talent, unlike your bloodline, unlike everything that happened to you before this moment, is something you can begin to shorten with the very next thing you do. But the mountain had a harder lesson waiting. And before I give it to you, I have to tell you about the other student, because his story is the warning, and you need the warning as much as you need the rule. There was a second young man on that mountain. His name was Ren, and where Sozin was ashamed, Ren was golden. He had everything Sozin lacked. His sword was faster. His balance was perfect. His body did things the others could only dream of, and it did them easily, the way water finds its level. When Ren trained, the others stopped to watch. When Ren spoke, even the older students leaned in. He was the most gifted man any of them had ever seen, and he knew it. And the master worried about him more than about any other student in the hall, because Ren had never needed a rule. He had never needed to close the gap, because his gift was so large that even his careless effort outshone other men's discipline. He rose when he felt like rising, and he felt like rising often, because winning came easily to him, and easy winning feels wonderful. He ran on motivation, and his motivation was strong, because the world rewarded him at every turn. And so he never learned the one thing the world will not teach you while you are winning. You know a Ren. Perhaps in some corner of your life, you have been a Ren. The thing that came easily to you, so you never built a rule beneath it. The talent that carried you while you were young, so you never learned to walk without it. And then one day the talent was not enough, and you reached for discipline, and your hand closed on nothing, because you had never built it, because you never thought you would need it. Watch what the mountain did to the golden boy. A hard winter came, the kind that comes once in a lifetime. The training did not pause for it, and for the first time in his life, Ren met a thing his gift could not carry him through. The cold did not care that his sword was fast. The dark mornings did not care that the others admired him. There was no crowd to perform for at 4 in the frozen dark, no easy applause, only the gray, indifferent work. The same work, done again and again, on days when no feeling came to lift it. And Ren had no rule, so Ren negotiated. And being brilliant, he negotiated brilliantly. He had 100 reasons, and every one of them was true, and every one of them was a door out of the cold. He was the most gifted student on the mountain, and he was the first to break. And he broke for exactly the reason the master had feared. He had spent his whole life waiting to feel like it, and he had simply never learned what to do when the feeling did not come. By spring, Ren was gone, and Sozin, the ashamed one, the slow one, the one who chased teacups, was still standing in the snow, not because he had grown gifted, because he had grown a rule. Let that burn into you, because it overturns the lie you have believed since you were a child. You think the disciplined people were given something you were not. You think they feel a strength you have never felt. They do not. The disciplined are not the ones who feel like it. They are the ones who built a rule for the mornings they do not feel like it. And the gifted who never built that rule are the ones who vanish quietly, one cold season at a time, while everyone wonders what became of all that promise. You do not need to be gifted. Ren was gifted, and the gap swallowed him. You need to be the one who closes the gap on the gray days. That is all discipline has ever asked of anyone. It does not check your talent at the door. It only checks whether you will move inside 7 breaths when no feeling comes to move you. There is one more thing the master taught Sozin in those early years, and you have to hear it, because it is the lie that has kept you soft for longer than you know. You believe, somewhere deep down, that discipline is a cage. You think the disciplined man has given something up, that he lives a smaller, harder, colder life than yours, that all his rules have walled him in, and so a part of you resists the rule quietly because a part of you is trying to stay free. The master sat the boy down one evening and told him the truth that turns this on its head. He said, "You think the man with no rule is the free one. Look again. The man with no rule is dragged by every passing feeling. He is ruled by the cold in the morning, by the warmth of his blankets, by his hunger and his boredom and his fear. He calls this freedom, but he is the least free man in the valley because he cannot do a single hard thing he decides to do. He is a servant to whatever he happens to feel. That is not freedom. That is the deepest slavery there is. And then the master said the thing Sozin carried for the rest of his life. The rule is not the cage. The rule is the key. The man who can close the gap is the only truly free man, because he, and he alone, can do what he decides to do. He wants to rise, and he rises. He wants to train, and he trains. His life obeys him, instead of the other way around. Sit with that, because it rearranges everything. You have been protecting your freedom by refusing the rule, and all the while the absence of the rule is the very thing enslaving you. Every morning you lose to your blankets. You are not free. You are owned. Owned by a feeling that will be gone by noon, that you will not even remember by evening, that you traded the whole shape of your life to obey. The disciplined are not the prisoners. You are the prisoner. The rule is how you walk out. And here is what the master knew that you do not yet feel in your bones. Every single time you close the gap, you are not just doing one hard thing. You are casting a vote for who you are. Rise once in 3 breaths, and you are a man who rises. Do it 100 times, and it is no longer a thing you do. It is a thing you are. You stop having to force it, the way you do not have to force your own name. The reps do not just build the habit, they build the man. And the man they build is the one who was underneath the whole time, buried under 10,000 mornings you negotiated away. Now let me take you deeper into Sozin's story, because the rule has a second half, and almost no one is ever taught the second half. The seasons turned, and the boy grew. He could rise in the dark now without a war inside his chest. He could train when his body complained, because he no longer waited to hear whether his body agreed. He had learned the first half of the rule: decide and move before the negotiation begins. And he thought, the way you would think, that he had learned discipline. He had not. He had learned the easy half. Because one spring a sickness came through the valley and the master fell. The training stopped, and for many weeks there was no one watching Sozin. No master in the cold to measure him, no other students to shame him, no eyes at all, just a boy, alone, with a rule that no one would ever check. And here, in the silence, he met the deeper enemy, not the second voice that argues in the gap, the silence that comes when no one is watching at all. You know this silence too. It is the truest test you will ever face, and the world will never grade it. It is easy to be disciplined when someone sees. It is easy to keep the promise you made out loud, in front of others, with your name attached to it. But the man you truly are is the man you are when the door is shut and the lights are off, and no one in the world would ever know if you broke your word to yourself tonight. That man, the one in the dark, the one no one is watching, that is the only man who is real. The rest is performance. And in that silence, Sozin almost lost everything he had built. The first morning the master was too ill to watch. The boy lay still. Just this once, the smooth voice said, and it had never sounded so kind. He is sick. No one will know. There is no one left to disappoint but yourself, and surely you have earned a single soft morning after all this time. The gap opened again, wide as a canyon, and the boy lay inside it. And for a long moment, he was going to stay. Watch what saved him, because it is the second half of the rule, and it is the half that builds the unbreakable kind of discipline, the kind that does not need a crowd or a master or anyone watching at all. He did not wait to feel like rising. He did not search his heart for the lost fire. He knew now that the fire was not coming, and he had stopped insulting himself by waiting for it. He simply counted. 1 breath, 2, 3. And on the 3rd breath, before the kind voice could finish its case, he put his bare feet on the cold floor. Not because the war was won, because he refused to let the war be fought. He had learned the deepest truth of discipline. You do not win the argument. You end it before it begins. Let that settle all the way down into you, because it names every morning you have ever lost. You did not lose those mornings because you were weak. You lost them because you tried to win an argument that you should never have allowed to start. You lay there and you debated, should I or shouldn't I? Is today the day, or is today a day I let myself rest? In the very moment you entered that debate, you had already lost, because the only honest answer your warm, tired mind ever gives at 5 in the morning is no. It will always be no. It will be no for the rest of your life. The disciplined man is not the man who wins that debate at dawn. No one wins that debate at dawn. He is the man who never opens it. He counts to 3, and his feet hit the floor, and the part of him that wanted to argue wakes up to find itself already standing, already moving, the decision made and gone before it could be unmade. This is why every past attempt of yours has failed. You were trying to feel your way into discipline. You were standing at the edge of every hard thing, waiting for a feeling of readiness that was never, ever going to come, and then taking its absence as proof that you simply were not built for this kind of life. But the boy in the snow was not built for it either. Ren, the golden one, was built for far more than you, and it did not save him. No one is built for the cold. The disciplined just stopped waiting for the cold to feel warm before they stepped into it. And here is the part that should frighten you a little, and then set you free. The gap never fully disappears, not for Sozin, not for the master, not for the oldest, hardest men with gray in their top-knots and 100 winters behind them. The second voice never dies. It only grows quieter and quicker to silence, the more times you refuse to give it the floor. Discipline is not a mountain you climb once and then stand upon forever. It is a rule you re-keep every single day in the space of 7 breaths for as long as you live. So stop waiting to become a disciplined person. There is no such finished person waiting at the end of the road, safe and complete, the war behind them. There is only this. The next decision and the small, clean act of closing the gap before the negotiation starts. Do that enough times, and people will call you disciplined, and they will be wrong about why. They will think you were given a strength they lack. You will know the truth. You simply stopped giving your weakness the time it needed to win. Now let me take you to the hardest night of Sozin's life, because everything I have told you is about to be tested in fire. And so, sooner than you think, will you be. The master recovered, but he was never again the man he had been. His hands shook, his eyes dimmed, and one cold evening he called Sozin to him and told him a thing the boy did not want to hear. It is time for you to leave the mountain. The rule cannot be proven where everything is gentle and ordered and quiet. You must carry it down into a world that will fight you for every breath, a world that will offer you a soft reason to break it on every corner of every street. So Sozin went down into the valley, into towns full of noise and want and 1,000 soft voices, all of them promising that the rule did not matter here, that one exception would not hurt, that he could simply begin again tomorrow with nothing owed today. And the world below was so much louder than the mountain had ever been. On the mountain, there had been one cold voice in the dark. In the world, there were 10,000 warm ones, and they never stopped, and every one of them was reaching for his gap. This is your world. This is the exact world you are trying to be disciplined inside of. And you must understand something about it that no one tells you. It is not a neutral place that happens to be hard. It is a place engineered deliberately to widen your gap and hold it open. Every screen, every feed, every easy and instant pleasure is a hand reaching into the space between your deciding and your doing, prying it open, whispering, "Stay a while, decide later, rest now. You have so much time." You do not have so much time. That is the lie that has cost you more than any other. The lie that the gap is harmless because you can always close it later. But every time you let the gap stay open, you are not resting. You are training. You are teaching your own mind with every repetition that your decisions are merely suggestions, that your word to yourself means nothing, that when you say "I will," what you actually mean is "I might, if it is easy, if I feel like it, if nothing better comes along." And a mind that has learned 10,000 times that your word means nothing will betray you on the one day it matters most. It will not rise to the occasion. It has been trained by you not to rise to anything. Sozin learned how much it matters on a night he did not plan for, in a narrow street, in a town whose name does not survive. A man drew steel on him with no warning and no reason that anyone would ever know. And in that instant, there was no room for motivation, no room for a feeling, no room for the long, reasonable debate. There was only the body, and what the body had been trained to do, and the years of small mornings buried in it like roots. His hand moved before his fear could speak. He lived because of the cup on the table. He lived because of the fire that needed wood. He lived because of every gray morning he had risen in 3 breaths, when staying down would have cost him nothing at all that he could see. None of those acts had mattered. All of those acts were the only thing that mattered. They were the reps. They were the rule, carved so deep into him that on the one night his life hung on a single motion. The disciplined man simply did what the undisciplined man only ever promises at night, that tomorrow he will finally do. Understand what this means for you, because it is the whole reason the cost of discipline is worth paying. The small promise you keep to yourself tomorrow morning is not small. It only looks small. It is a rehearsal. You are not merely rising early or training or doing the dull work. You are teaching your own body a single, total lesson. When I decide, I move. And one day, on a day you cannot see coming and cannot prepare for in the moment, your whole life will turn on whether that lesson was learned. A chance that needs you to act now, not next week. A door that opens for 3 breaths and then is gone. A moment that does not wait and does not care and does not come twice. The disciplined walk through that door without thinking because their body already knows how to move when it is told. The rest stand in the gap, negotiating, gathering their courage, waiting to feel ready, and they watch the door swing shut, and they tell themselves, there will be another. There is not always another. So let me leave the mountain now, and the valley, and the boy who became a hard old man in his own time. Let me speak only to you, because the story was never the point. You were always the point. You and the gap, and the one rule that closes it. Here is what to do, and I want you to feel how unglamorous it is, because the smallness of it is the whole reason it works, and the reason you have ignored it for so long. Tonight, choose one thing, not 10. One promise you have broken to yourself 100 times. The early rise, the training, the book, the work you keep pushing into a tomorrow that has never once arrived. Choose it now before you go any further, and make it small enough that you cannot lie your way out of it. And tomorrow, when the moment comes, you will not wait to feel ready, because you finally understand that ready is not coming. You will not search yourself for fire, because the fire is not the point and never was. You will count 1 breath, 2, 3, and on the 3rd breath you will move before the smooth and reasonable voice can open its mouth to begin. You will not try to win the argument. You will end it before it begins. And then you will find the rule everywhere, because the gap is everywhere. It is not only in the morning, it is in the moment your hand reaches for the screen instead of the work. Count, and put the screen down on 3. It is in the moment the training gets boring and the voice says that is enough for today. Count, and do 1 more on 3. It is in the moment before the hard conversation you have been avoiding for a month. Count, and speak on 3. It is in the moment you sit down to do the thing that matters and feel the pull to do anything else instead. Count, and begin on 3. Every one of these is the same gap. Every one of these is closed the same way. You are not learning 100 disciplines. You are learning 1 rule and applying it to 100 doors. And watch what it does to your word, because this is the part that will change how you walk among other people. Right now, when you tell someone you will do a thing, a small part of you already knows you might not. They hear it too. Your word has been worn thin by all the times you broke it, first to yourself, then to them. But a man who closes the gap becomes a man whose word is iron, because his deciding and his doing have become the same act. When he says he will, he does. The way the sun says nothing and simply rises. People feel this. They build their lives around men like this. And it begins, all of it, with the small private war you win tomorrow morning when no one is watching at all. You will fail some days. Hear me clearly. You will fail. The boy in the snow failed, again and again, and the master let him, because the failing is not the end of discipline. Quitting the rule is the end of discipline. Failing and returning to the rule the very next morning without drama and without despair, that is the rule. That is the whole of it. You do not need to be perfect. You were never asked to be perfect. You need only to be returning faster each time to the count of 3. And slowly, in acts so small you will be almost ashamed to call them victories, something will begin to change in the deepest part of you. The gap will narrow, the voice will quiet. The distance between the one who decides and the one who acts will close, breath by breath, morning by morning, until one day they are the same person, and you will not even remember the day it happened, because it will not have happened in a single day. It will have happened the way every real and lasting thing happens, not in a blaze of fire, in 1,000 gray mornings of keeping 1 small word to yourself when no one was watching and nothing forced your hand. Imagine yourself 1 year from tonight, not transformed in a blaze, not made into someone you are not, just a man who for 1 year kept closing the gap. Picture the mornings you rose without a war. Picture the work that piled up into something real, 1 unnegotiated hour at a time. Picture the body, the calm, the quiet weight you would carry into every room, because somewhere underneath it all you would finally know that when you tell yourself you will do a thing, you do it. That man is not a fantasy. He is not waiting on better luck or a stronger feeling or a different past. He is on the other side of a single rule, kept badly at first, then better, then without thinking. He is 3 breaths away, repeated for a year. And the only thing standing between you and him is the gap you choose to close or leave open, starting with the very next morning. That is the samurai rule that builds unbreakable discipline. Not a feeling, not a force of will you were handed at birth or denied at birth, a gap, and the quiet refusal to let it stay open. 7 breaths between the knowing and the doing, and the small, daily courage to close them before the world can reach inside. You decided. You remember the exact moment you decided. The only question left is the one you have been avoiding your entire life. How long will you let the gap stay open this time? 3 breaths. That is the whole of the distance between the person you are tonight and the person you swore so many times that you would finally become. Start counting.